is a window. It's a window into that which is going on inside of us. The goal is not to control it. All that does is suppression and repression and denial. All it does is squeeze you and suffocate you. It's not the goal. You don't want to repress, you don't want to suppress, you don't want to deny, you don't want to squeeze. What you want to do is be free. And what that means is that we work with them. Here's what's interesting. Any emotion, any feeling state, it's actually really quick. It comes, it peaks. They don't last. They only last when the mind gets engaged. The mind gets engaged and starts telling us a story. So let's say, for example, something triggers me and suddenly I'm angry. Suddenly I feel literally just angry. My palms are sweaty, my heart's beating fast, my vision gets narrow, my blood pressure's up. All of the things that make us know I'm angry. The anger itself is like a wave on the ocean. It literally, it comes, it builds, it builds, it builds, and then it recedes. But what happens instead is our thinking mind kicks in and starts telling us a story. I cannot believe he did that. I cannot believe she said that. That was so rude. That was so obnoxious. How dare they? And what that does is it perpetuates the presence of that emotion. Now I'm continuing to draw the emotion back over and over and over again, to bring it back, to bring it back. My anger would have dissipated. But I've brought it back through the story, through the narrative, through the constant telling and retelling. And so, couple of things. First of all, be conscious. Because here's what's interesting. A lot of the emotions, they only happen in So if I say to you right now, all right, you've got 30 seconds. Get as angry as you can. Okay, close your eyes. Get really angry. Really furious, irate. Okay, open your eyes. Easy or hard? It's hard. And it's interestingly hard. Because I'm sure that if I said to you, all right, tell me the things that make you angry. We all know what they are. I mean, whether it's world hunger or your roommate or your parent, we've all got things that make us angry. So it's not that we can't remember them. It's that anger arises in unconsciousness. The anger that kills us, that steals our life, that ruins our mood, that ruins our relationships, it arises in unconsciousness. That's why we always say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, like that wasn't me. Of course it was you. Who else was it? It just wasn't conscious you. Or we say, I don't know what came over me. Nothing came over you. You lost consciousness. You lost presence. You lost yourself. And when you lose yourself, anger takes over. So number one, stay conscious. Because as you've just seen, it's not very easy to get angry consciously. Stay conscious. Doesn't mean nothing will bother you. But what it means is that you're not going to lose yourself. You won't say things you regret. You won't do things you regret. And you're not going to feel like something has taken over you. Number one. Number two. When the feelings are things like sadness, loss, grief, allow it. Doesn't do you any good to try to control it. All it does is repress it. Allow it. There's a time for it. I remember a good friend of mine many, many, many years ago called me. She was very upset. She was young. She had gotten pregnant. She wasn't married. She was still in school. She had made the very, very, very difficult decision to have an abortion. And she was really struggling after that. She was really grieving after that. And she called me because she had gone to see a therapist who had put her on antidepressants. I had said to her 2 weeks ago, you aborted the child living within you. Of course you're sad. I mean, you know it was the right decision, but nonetheless, of course you're sad. This is it's not a disease to have to be medicated away. You are feeling sad. You're not clinically depressed that needs to be medicated. You're grieving. Grieve. Cry. Be sad. Experience it. And far too many of us are living in this world where we're really led to believe that somehow our emotions need to be controlled. And if you can't do it, well, don't worry, we have a pill that'll do it for you. Feel sad? Here's a pill. Feel worried? Here's a pill. Feel this? Here's a pill. It's not the problem, and it's not the solution. The solution is to recognize that all of these, they arise, they're with us for some time, whether due to something very deep, like you've actually lost, and so you're grieving. Can't tell you how many people who have lost a loved one and they come here for an ash immersion ceremony. And they say, I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't stop crying. Well, their mother or their father or their husband or their wife or their child died a week ago, a month ago. Of course they can't stop crying. It's the most natural thing in the world. But we're led to believe that somehow the emotions are wrong. It means you're weak. It means you're not spiritual. It means you need to be medicated. Emotions just are. And as I began, they're windows. They're windows into what's going on in us. You're grieving, you look in. Of course I'm grieving. I'm sad. I've lost. Okay. Sometimes they're windows into more interesting aspects of your psyche, like, oh, I'm angry. I wonder why. That's really interesting. Why am I so angry about this? Not, let me have a few shots of something and I'll feel better. Or let me try to control it. But rather, let me look at it. Why am I angry? What is it that's going on? What was my expectation that wasn't fulfilled? And how can I work with that? Because the goal is to work with these through understanding the self, through understanding our triggers, so that we become free. Not repressed, not suppressed, not suffocated, but free. So when it's there, allow it. Don't hold on to it. Don't tell yourself a story. But use it as a window in. Notice what's going on. Work with it. And ask yourself, if the emotion is anger, for example, ask yourself, is it worth it? Is whatever I'm angry about worth my peace in this moment? And if it's not, can I do something different about it? Can I choose something different? This person insulted me. They were mean to me. They were rude to me. This happened. That happened. I'm angry. Okay. Well, now my peace is gone. My happiness is gone. My freedom is gone. Ask yourself, is it worth it? And realize you've got free will. I am not the emotion police. I'm not going to tell you what is worth it and what is not. You get to decide how much of your peace, freedom, joy you want to have in your hand, accessible in your life, blossoming, flowering, and how much you want to offer on the altar of someone else's arrogance or ego or ignorance or greed or lust or confusion or whatever it may be. So use these emotions and feelings, just notice them, be aware, and use them as ways to get more and more conscious, not ways to suffocate yourself. Great, thank you to Lakshmi Narayan for the question. Yes, there's a mic here. Yeah. Yes, come to the mic. One sec, he's coming to turn it on.
As you were talking, I do understand that grieving is going on. So is it, I know there's no time bound that how much you can grieve if you lost someone. So how it is the better way to cope with a big loss or a grief, though it has been past more than 14 years? So that's the question I have, like how to cope with that grief.
The grief of losing someone 14 years ago.
Yes. Thank you.
Sure. So when you lose someone you love, you are forever changed. When you love someone, you are forever changed. And when you lose someone you love, you are forever changed. Do not ever expect, and I think this is a big mistake that people make, is they expect after a certain period of time, I will be done. I'll be done grieving. I will go back to how I used to be. You won't. But you will be a new, shifted, expanded, deepened, adjusted incarnation of you. When you start to really open your heart in love, it changes you. Even if you don't lose them, it changes you. If you lose them, it changes you again. But the goal of life is not to always stay the same. The goal of life is to keep growing and expanding. Falling in love, whether it's a romantic love, whether it's the love of a child, a parent, a spouse, a sibling, it expands us. It opens our heart. It transforms us in extraordinary ways. And when we lose, we are changed again. But what happens is when you first lose someone, there's this gaping hole inside of you. The hole never gets filled. It's not like suddenly that hole disappears and it's filled and it's gone, or that, you just get another spouse or make another child, or then somehow the hole is going to be filled. It doesn't happen like that. But what happens is you grow around that hole in a way that you're able to blossom and grow and expand and experience joy and love again. That which keeps us really stuck. Now again, remember, that grief, that sadness will always be there. When you think of the one that you lost, along with love, along with joy, along with beautiful memories, there will always be a bit of that pang of grief. But the only thing that tends to keep us really from moving on, I think, is a sense of guilt or anger or resentment. If it is just pure grief, as I said, eventually you move on. Hole doesn't fill up, but you grow around it. And light starts to come in again. And in some cases, that hole becomes the place, right? They say, crack me open, because that crack is the place through which the light shines. Break my heart, crack it. Through that crack is where light shines. But if there's anger, if you're angry at the person who died because they wouldn't stop smoking, didn't wear their seatbelt, didn't listen to what you told them to do, didn't take care of themselves, didn't always stay there with you even though they promised you they would, there's an anger. And that anger could eat you alive forever. There's also sometimes guilt. If only I had. You see it a lot with parents who lose their children. Obviously, the grief of that is, I think, probably far worse than anything, because it's not just the most tragic, but the least in the natural order of things. Children expect to bury their parents. Parents don't expect to bury their children. But I think another aspect that makes it so much more traumatic as well is I think that there's always inevitably some aspect of guilt. As a parent, you're supposed to take care of your child. You're supposed to protect them. And even when things like kids who get shot in school, parents did the right thing. The kids are in school. They're exactly where they should be. But I know, just intuitively, that those parents are going to have feelings of, I knew it, I shouldn't have sent them to school that day, they had a stomachache, they wanted to stay home, or I had an intuition, or I knew that was the wrong school, or I let someone talk me into it, whatever it may be. But some element of guilt. So I think that if you find that 14 years later, other than just the pure sadness at the loss, if you find that you are unable to move on, examine whether there isn't also anger and whether there isn't also guilt, one or the other, because those could keep it festering inside of you forever. But fortunately, those are things that we can work through. And if you allow yourself to work through the anger and work through the guilt, then the grief itself will just exist, but it won't prevent you from moving on in life. Yeah. Other questions? Yes. Come. And then you.
Hello.
Yes.
I have a question regarding something else. Is that okay?
Regarding something?
Something else.
Of course,
Something
absolutely.
Okay. So I have a hard time expressing this, but I'm gonna do my best. So in the universe, or in the earth, here on earth, there is good and bad, and there is light and there is darkness, and there is some kind of balance between it. So there's yin and yang. Without the good, there is no bad, and without light, there is no darkness. And as you said yesterday, or here on earth, there is both hell and heaven, a mental state, kind of, which which we in a way choose where to be, or can work to get there.
Yes.
So my question is, what happens if a majority of humans or people get to the heaven state? If it becomes an imbalance, or what the effects are?
Beautiful. So, we most definitely do not need a balance of bad and good. The balance that yin and yang speak about has to do with elements that keep the natural world in balance. In the Vedic tradition, we speak about something called yugas or eras, hundreds of thousands of year eras, and we believe, and there's 4 main eras. Now, this particular era is called Kali Yuga. It's the era of darkness, which is why we are seeing so much of the hatred and violence and war and destruction and illusion and fear and separation and arrogance and selfishness and all of these things. These are qualities of Kali Yuga. There have been yugas of light in which the darkness exists in a random form of a particular demon or asura, who in our variety of different stories and epics, the forces of good will slaughter the forces of evil. So a lot of the stories that, fill the scriptural mythology are stories of beings of light, beings of goodness, vanquishing the beings of darkness, the asuras. But there's never a sense of, we better create more asuras because now when the beings of light are killing them, we need more darkness. It's always celebrated as a very great victory when we have beings of light that conquer the beings of darkness. So there have been entire eras of light and goodness. When you look at things where we see opposites, light, dark, hot, cold, it's not so much that we need them both, it's that we actually are only able to know one based on the other. So we're able to know temperature only in warmth. Coldness, there isn't actually a temperature of coldness. It's just an absence of warmth. Right? What's the temperature? 70 degrees. It's warm. Fahrenheit, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Nice, warm day. What's the temperature? 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Less warmth. There isn't a presence of coldness. There's just an absence of warmth. So it's not actually, when we speak about balance of, for example, sun and moon or north and south, these are actually magnetic poles. These opposites that you spoke about are not really like that. Coldness is just an absence of warmth. In most cases, darkness is just an absence of light. In other cases, it's an absence on a kind of scientific cosmic level. It's an absence of an object off of which the light can reflect. Because the sun shines in space. It's there. Space should be, at least our solar system, should be bright. Right? But you see pictures of it, it's not, it's dark. Right? The Earth is bright. The planets are bright. The planets closer to the sun are brighter, but the space between them is dark. Why? Right? I mean, it's an interesting question. The sun is there. Why is the space between Mercury and Venus dark, or between Venus and Earth dark? Clearly there's enough sunlight, it's still making Earth light, because there's not an object that will reflect that light. We have the moon. Sun is there in the night, but it needs an object to be reflected off of. We have the moon in the night, we can see the light. In any case, point being, darkness is an absence of light. There isn't anything specific as darkness, just an absence of light or an absence of something that reflects the light. If more and more people turn toward goodness, it will mean that we are moving out of Kali Yuga. It will mean that we are shifting. It will mean that we are awakening. It will be beautiful and exquisite, and it will be exactly what is meant to happen. Nothing to worry about. It's what we need. We don't need hatred to know love. Babies know love, they've never known hatred. We don't learn hatred till we're significantly older. We don't need to know pain to know joy. Our purpose here on earth is actually to unfold that truth within us, and that truth is good. If we all unfold it, then that goodness is going to expand, which will be exactly what's meant to happen. Then you can only imagine that all of the sages and the saints and the guides, the leaders, religious, otherwise, national, social, all of those who have guided us throughout thousands and thousands of years. You can only imagine that wherever they are, they will be smiling, that finally, eventually, people listened. So yeah, don't worry, we won't fall out of balance. We'll fall into love. Yeah, so go for it fully. Don't worry. Wonderful. Yes.
Namaste. I wanted to know is how do I find my Uru, and also a certain period of my my Kundalini says that I'm right now in Rahu. So how should I live during the period of Rahu, and what is Rahu's meaning in my life?
Okay. So, two different questions. We'll take them both briefly. They both could be seminars in and of themselves. The first is, how do I find my guru? So they say traditionally that when the disciple is ready, the guru appears. That's the traditional teaching around that. It's important to realize that the word guru is literally the one who removes the darkness, the one who brings the light that removes the darkness. Which darkness? The darkness of ignorance. That ignorance of who we are. And so open your heart to that presence of light. And the guru may appear in the form of a living, breathing, human being master to guide you through. Or the guru may appear in a book that falls off of a bookshelf, and you discover the teachings of a master who is no longer in their bodies. Or the guru could be someone who ends up not looking anything like a guru at all, but was someone who, when you opened your heart to that light, who appeared and who has shown you the light of your true self. Because that's the light the guru shows, is the light of who you are. So open your heart to that light, and the guru will appear. But just make sure that you're not staying really close-minded to what it has to look like, who it has to be, in what way it's going to appear, what they have to tell me. You never know which way and from where that guru is going to appear. Then she spoke about being in a certain aspect of astrology and Rahu and the challenges of it and how to come out of it. So astrology, like astronomy, is very scientific, meaning it's all about angles and positions and poles of gravitational energy of different planets and the moon upon you at different times, different constellations. You come out of it only when constellations shift, poles shift. I've never heard of a way to somehow just do something and change where the planets are, right? Because it all comes from when you were born and what it is now. But that doesn't mean that you can't change the impact upon yourself. You can. And that's what you need to do. We are not victims of our horoscopes. You see a lot of times people really feel like they're victims of it. And a lot of times astrologers will tell you, right? You poor thing. If you don't give me a lot of money to do this special puja for you, you're really going to be in a bad shape. All the astrology can tell you is poles, probabilities. For example, here's a simple way to think about it. The pull of the moon on the ocean makes high tide and low tide, right? We know that. One simple pull. Not even planets involved. Just the moon, just the ocean. High tide, low tide. Now let's say I'm your astrologer, okay? You've gone on vacation to the beach. And you call me and you say, give me a reading. So I open up whatever I use to do my astrology readings. And I know that from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. is high tide. Especially high tide today. Special moon position, something especially high tide today. And so I say to you, your morning has perils. Be very careful, or a very serious accident could befall you. Now, doesn't mean you're going to die. Doesn't mean that you're a victim of what I've told you. What it means is, hey, there's a high tide, like you don't know how to swim. Take your walk somewhere else this morning. Don't go for a really long beach walk where you can't get back without walking through the ocean. It's a probability. And it says, I can see, if you, metaphorically, if you walk on the beach in the morning, grave danger. Take your walk somewhere else. Use astrology to understand strengths, weaknesses, probabilities, likelihoods, so that you can navigate the best way to stay healthy physically, emotionally, spiritually, to know where your challenges are coming from, right? I mean, you look at the weather on your phone before you walk out. If it looks cloudy, to know, should I bring an umbrella or not? Do I need a sweater? Is it a cold day? Should I plan to walk or drive? Do we want to reserve a table on the patio or inside for lunch? Like, what's the weather going to be like? You use it like that. Don't use it as a death sentence, even a temporary death sentence. It isn't. Okay, you're in Rahu now. There's all sorts of pujas and ways of moving through it. One of my favorite stories of this type of thing is the story of the donkey, the old donkey, who fell into a dry well. And the farmer sees what happened, and he realizes there's no way to get the donkey up. And then he thinks, donkey's old, kind of useless anymore. Forget it. Why should I even bother trying to help him up, Why bother getting a rope and trying to do it? Let's just bury him alive. So he gets the other villagers together and gets everybody to start shoveling in dirt on top of the donkey. But every shovelful of dirt that falls on the donkey goes like this and shakes it off him. And so the dirt ends up at his feet, and then he just keeps stepping up on it. And eventually the donkey walks right out of the well, because they've poured so much dirt on him that just by shaking it off and continuing to step up, he walked right out of his difficulty. So I love that story because it would have been so easy for him to just collapse and be like, oh my God, I guess it's over. I mean, when your own farmer is trying to bury you alive, like, what other hope do you have? But just an awareness that maybe that's not the only way. Maybe there's actually a way around this thing. Maybe I can withstand it. It's just one shovelful at a time. So just let that be kind of your mantra through this period of Rahu. It's just whatever it is that comes, I'm going to just shake it off and use the challenge as another stepping stone to just step up and step up and step up and step up. Okay? Beautiful. Yes. We'll start with your question tomorrow evening. Kal aap se shuru karenge. Have a beautiful, beautiful evening. I'm hoping that from tomorrow we should go back to being somewhat more on time. I'm thinking that we should probably be able to start typically by around 6:45 or so. So we will aim for that again. But again, do be sure to join us in the Arati before this. A, because it's so incredibly heavenly and divine, and B, also because then you'll know exactly when it's finishing and then when we're going to be coming in and starting. And in addition to that, be sure to join us for our full days of yoga programs, meditation programs, morning fire ceremonies. Everything is open to everyone with no charge. There's a schedule up in the reception area, so whether you're staying here or staying somewhere else, you're more than welcome to join us for everything. And so much love to you all.